Hey there, so it's Jason. If I didn't meet you guys the other night at the party, now you know my name's Jason. Apparently, a few of you liked my pork green chili, so I wanted to make a little video for you guys and teach you how I make it. I don't really have a recipe for it. It's just something that I kind of throw together, and I just figured it'd be more fun to make a video and kind of show you and walk you and talk you through the process of making green chili. So a little bit about me. I've been in the industry as a chef for almost 40 years. I don't actively chef anymore. I do a lot of food styling for magazines and commercials, and I also teach. So kind of filming this and putting this together is a little something a little bit new for me, but it's something I've been wanting to do for a while. So you guys are my guinea pigs. Anyways, a little my background. Like I said, I've been in the industry for 40 years. I'm trained in French classical cuisine, and I'm an ex-Texan. So when it comes to kind of spice and flavor and Mexican-based cuisine, I kind of have a knack for it. It's what I do. It's one of my favorite styles of cuisine to cook. And so I'm going to start walking you through the process. All right, so let's talk about some of the ingredients we're going to use, and then I'll talk a little bit about each one. Right here we have some pork shoulder. You can use some pork butt, pork shoulder. I prefer you use a very fatty cut, like pork spare ribs, pork shoulder, pork butt. You don't want anything too lean because we want this to get really tender and break down in the cooking process. Right here you have tomatillos, about a pound of tomatillos. Those are part of the nightshade family. Tomatoes, chiles, things like that. Those are the nightshade family. They taste very different than a tomato though. They're very acidic and a little bit sweet. Right there we have a poblano pepper. We have some fresh garlic. We've got a white onion cut in half. We have 3 red tomatoes. We have a big handful of cilantro there. And then over here, these are, just a kind of a shortcut. This brand is called 505 Green Chilies. And you can see one is a mild and one is a medium, so it depends on how hot you like it. I made it for you guys a little bit more mild than I normally would eat it. But if you want to spice it up, you can use just the medium. You can throw some jalapenos in there or something. This brand is available at most grocery stores, even Whole Foods here in Colorado. But if you can't find them, you can always order them on Amazon. So in here we have about a tablespoon of salt. We have a tablespoon of cumin, and we have some Mexican oregano there, which is about 2 teaspoons. So if you want to be more proficient in a kitchen, it's best to always have your mise en place together. Mise en place is a French term meaning everything in its place. So what we want to do is anytime we follow a recipe, we want to have everything pre-measured, pre-cut, all the things that need to be done before we ever turn on a stove or an oven. That way we'll be more successful. The reason you can go into a restaurant and order food and it comes out in 15 to 18 minutes later perfectly plated is because we as professional chefs went in and started our shift 2 hours early, and we prepped all of our mise en place for that station. So when that first ticket comes in, we pull that ticket and assemble, fire. That's the term for like, hey, fire, cook my food right now. We fire that food right away. It makes it super simple for us and fast for us to put it all together. So right now, the first thing we want to do is we want to take our tomatillos that have a husk on them like this. You're going to simply take that husk, peel that back, do that to all of your tomatillos first, throw the husk in the trash. These things are sticky, not a big deal. Just wash your hands when you're done. So now that I've got all my tomatillos peeled, I'm going to go ahead and cut up my poblano pepper. I'm going to cut up my onion and get that ready because we're going to saute that. We're also going to break down some garlic here. Let's talk about one thing when it comes to garlic. Let me turn this camera up here. So one thing about garlic is the least expensive way to buy garlic is this way, right? A lot of us don't like to do that because it's kind of a pain, it's sticky, you gotta peel it, you gotta smash it, you gotta do whatever, take the skin off, then you gotta break it down. So there's a few things you can do. Number one, never buy that stuff in a jar that's diced up with water in it. I call that garlic. It's not good for anything. No, bad idea. Either buy it fresh or at the very least, most grocery stores, you can buy whole cloves peeled already. That's usually the way I buy it. Also, sometimes if you want it like really finely minced, one of the best things you can do is in your, where you might find your fresh herbs, is go to that part of the grocery store and they'll have in tubes, they'll have fresh minced garlic paste, stuff like that. That's really fresh and good. Sometimes it's easier just to put a squirt of that in there and be done with it rather than peeling garlic this way. So I'm going to break those things down and we'll do that real quick. So how we dice an onion, let's go back down here. I'm going to take my knife right here. I've cut the ends off the onions. Come through here. I'm going to make little cuts in the onion. All right, turn it. Break that onion down that way. A lot of people say, what do you do with that part? Take it. Just get it a rough chop there. Your onions are done. Just kind of a small to medium dice is all you really need. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to break down the poblano pepper. I like the poblano pepper to be in strips for this. So what I'm going to do is take this, cut it in half. We have our seeds in there. These things can be pretty hot at times, not always. I'm used to it, so I touch it with my hands. Be careful with your hands. Once you've touched the seeds, they have the capsaicin on them, which is an oil, which is what makes them spicy and hot. Don't touch your eyes, not a good thing. And men, if you go to the bathroom, be careful. Always wash your hands anyways. All right, so I've got my poblanos there. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take them, open them up a little bit, smash them, and then I'm just gonna cut them into strips. I like that kind of floating around in my pork green chili. Take that, put that. Okay, so I got my poblanos and my onions done right there. I didn't need that whole onion, it was a big onion. This is all we're gonna use. That was half of a big white onion and a small poblano pepper. So the next thing I'm gonna do is cut up our garlic. Usually you can take these, put a hand on them, pull a few cloves out. I like the bigger ones, the smaller ones are a little bit of a pain. Garlic's kind of a key thing in pork green chili. You don't want too much, but you want a good solid dose of it. It really kind of gives the chili body. And we need that so that we have a really full flavored pork green chili. And I've got, let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's say 6, let's go 7 right there. So once I've separated all my cloves, if I want to peel this, one way I can do it is I can take it and I can smash it with my hand. Take my knife, give it a little smash there, pop it right out, throw that away. Next thing we want to do is we want to mince our garlic. So what I like to do, break it all down first, get a little bit smaller, get a nice little pile going there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mince. So I take my knife, pinch the blade just like this, 2 fingers on that side, thumb on that side. I'm gonna hold my hand here. This is like a pivot point. And then I'm gonna start, you can pull it back into a pile like that. Mince it again. And just kind of break it down to the consistency that you like. I like it pretty fine for my chili. I don't want to see it in there too much, so pretty small dice, pretty much minced at that point. Sometimes you got to clean your blade off. Get you a nice little pile. Minced garlic, we got a lot of garlic there. All right, so now I'm going to season my pork with a little salt and pepper, and there's a few things you can do here. So I have a Kamado grill, which is like the big green eggs that you've seen. Mine's red, it's the Kamado Joe brand, but those are ceramic grills. They've been in use for thousands of years in Japan, and as a chef, some of the best cooked meats, smoked meats that I've ever had in my life have come off a Kamado. So I've had everything from gas-fired grills to charcoal grills to pellet smokers, and thus far this is the most challenging, but it produces the best food. So what I'm going to do is season my pork with a little bit of salt and pepper. I'm going to take that out, I'm going to throw it on the grill, and I'm also going to take my tomatillos and 2 of my tomatoes and throw those on the grill as well. I'm going to blacken them. I'll show you that process. If you don't have a grill and you don't want to do it that way, first off, the reason I use the grill is because I use hard lump charcoal, and it gives the meat a little bit of a wood-fired flavor. It also does that when I'm blackening my tomatillos and my tomatoes, so I prefer that flavor. If you don't have that, if you have a gas grill, you can buy this little metal box at Home Depot or something like that. It's got little slats cut in it, and you can put wood chips in there and put it in your grill, let it get going, it'll start smoking, and that's the way you can get that same kind of wood-fired flavor in a gas grill. The other way to blacken your tomatoes and your tomatillos is to put your oven on 550 on broil, toss your tomatillos and tomatoes in a little oil, salt and pepper, throw them on a pan. Make sure you put a little foil down on your pan so that all those sugars don't burn on the pan. It makes it harder to clean. But put them in the oven, toss them every couple minutes till they get nice and black on the outside. You're gonna see what that looks like once I finish these. So I'm gonna season my pork with salt and pepper, and I'm gonna take this stuff outside, lay it on the grill, and get some nice color on it. The other thing we wanna do is also to know, when I'm taking the pork outside, oh, and I didn't describe that either. What you do with your pork, if you don't have a grill that you're gonna do it on, just heat up a pan with some oil, cut your pork into like bite-sized chunks, and get some really nice browning on it. So you want some really hot fire, throw some oil in there, and just let it sit. Don't overload your pan. If you overload your pan, it'll get too cold. It's the same as adding like ice cubes to something hot. So you want just enough in there so that your pan stays smoking hot. You want that oil smoking before you put it in there. And just give it a little browning all the way around, which is what I'm going to do on my grill. I'm not going to cook it all the way through though. So that high heat is important to get that caramelization on the outside. And I'm gonna go do it on my grill. All right, so I have a nice hot grill right here. The nice thing about these Kamados is they'll get up to 1700 degrees if you need them to. So I'm gonna lay my pork in there right over the flame. I wanna lay it fat side down so you can see that fat side, because I want that to get nice and crispy. Add some flavor. And at the same time, I'm just gonna take my tomatillos, drop them in there, move them on top of the fire. These will blacken a lot quicker than my pork will. I don't want to blacken my pork, I want it caramelized. But these will get nice and roasted here pretty quick. So I'm going to set this up, let them get some color, and we'll be right back. All right, so we're starting to get some color on these. I've turned them a little bit. I want them nice and black. You can see how black that is? That's what we want. Got a little burn mark right there. That's all right. We're gonna cut this up. It's gonna cook and stew for a while. It's gonna taste great. I want these blackened on all sides. Okay, so now that I've gotten everything off the grill, what we're going to do is we're going to take our poblanos, onions, and carrots. I've added a little oil in there. You want to hear that noise when we drop it in, and you want to hear it sizzle like that. Good saute temp. And what we're going to do is we're going to start to just kind of push this around in the oil. By the way, if you browned your pork in a pan first. Once you take your pork out, leave the fat in there and just use that to saute your onions, poblano, and garlic. So we're just looking for the onions to get a little bit translucent. All right, now that the onions are a little bit translucent, I'm going to take my pork. I'm going to drop it in there. I'm going to add my salt. Maybe not all of it, just kind of eyeball it. If you added too much salt, you'll know that you did. Another thing about salt is 99.9% of the time, if your dish tastes like it's missing something, it's usually salt. So if you are cooking a soup or stew or something, it tastes like it's missing something, rather than season the whole thing, take a big spoonful of it, put a little salt in it, and taste it first. If you go, oh yeah, that was the reason, then add more salt, salt your whole thing so that you don't over salt. Next thing is we have our Mexican oregano. Gonna sprinkle that in there. And then we have cumin. So an interesting thing about cumin. Cumin is not American, it's not an American spice. It's not grown on the American continents. So how did it get here and where did it come from? Cumin is a Middle Eastern spice. And when the Spanish came to the Americas, they brought with them Berbers. And Berbers were of Arabic descent. And a common flavor profile in Arabic cuisine is garlic, cumin, and onions. So, combine that with the chiles of Mexico and the foods that they make. That's how cumin came to be known in Mexican food on both the American continents. Now I got that going, I'm going to go ahead and just dump all my chiles in there. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to puree our tomatillos and our tomatoes. All right, so I've added my tomatillos and my tomatoes to my blender here, my roasted ones. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some cilantro here. And I'm going to tear off almost all the tops. You can throw the stems right in there. By the way, most people either love cilantro or they hate it. There's no in between ever. A few things to know. The leaves don't have much flavor, so it's always okay to use the stems. If they're too big like this, or like the ends right there, you don't want to use those. But the thinner stems up top, throw it all in your guacamole, whatever you're cooking. The stems have more flavor than the leaves. They're very effervescent and bright. So, once I have that in there, put my lid on. Let's mix it up. All right, so now we just have a very kind of chunky salsa in there almost. And we're gonna take that, we're gonna add it to our pot over here. Here's our salsa. And the next thing we need to do is take our blender over here to our sink. Fill it up with some water. Go ahead and wash those sides down and get whatever's collected in there from our salsa. And we're going to add it to our pan. So this is the kind of final step in the cooking process, and I'm going to explain a few things about that. Let's take our water over here. Add it to that. And what you want is the water to just cover the meat. I'm going to add a little bit more here and we'll be ready to go. And we want to bring this to a nice simmer. Okay, now that we've got that going, we've got a nice simmer going over here. I'm going to do one last thing and let it start to cook. I'm going to take a little bit of bouillon. Personally, I like to use better than bouillon. I don't like to use the dried stuff. There's too much sodium in it. This is organic. You can get an organic brand of, or version of this. This is the roasted chicken, and I'll add about a tablespoon and a half, just kind of eyeball it, dump it right in there and stir it in. Okay, so I'm gonna let this simmer for about 3 hours. But what's gonna happen in that time is you're gonna start reducing that water, and you're gonna need to add water back. So usually over that 3 hour period, once an hour, I add water back to the top. Just cover it, let it reduce down, and on your 3rd hour, the last time you add water should be enough. Once we get close to the end, I'll make a video of how I thicken it just a tiny bit using a little bit of masa, which is fine ground cornmeal, and we'll be finished. So what that means, it's time to grab a beer or a glass of wine and go watch TV and let it cook. Make your house smell really good, by the way. So a few other notes I was thinking of. Number one, you can cover it for most of the cooking process. That'll hold a lot of the moisture in, the water in. You won't have to refill it as much. Just check on it every hour. Another thing you could do is if you wanted to do all this prep ahead of time at night, have it all ready in the morning, and you have a crock pot, you could literally do that at night, clean up your mess, go to bed, dump it all in a crock pot the next morning, put the cover on it, put it on medium, and come home 7-8 hours later, and it's just gonna fall apart. So that's another option you have. It's a lot of work to make a good chili. I mean, in a way, if you're not real comfortable with it, like I am. And there are a lot of steps to this. So me mentioning like putting it in a crock pot overnight is, seems like a lot of work. So if you're going to do that, I always recommend, if you have a big crock pot, make a bunch, vacuum seal it, do whatever you do, put it in the freezer and save it for a rainy day. That way you only make it once. So I have a 9-quart cast iron Dutch oven right here. So I can make quite a bit of this, and it's just my wife and I. I'm not gonna eat it all. So not tonight at least. But it's nice to freeze some for a nice snowy day that's coming up or something like that. All right, so I've been editing while this chili has been cooking, and I'm seeing editing errors, such as I use a Gatorade can to hold my tripod a little bit higher to get this angle, and I noticed it in the background of some of my shots, but I said you guys were guinea pigs. Anyways, so the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna thicken our green chili. It's at a simmer now. So how we're gonna thicken it is we got a bowl, we have a whisk, we have a little bit of masa, maseca, amarillo. So this is instant yellow cornmeal, super cheap. Take a little bit of it. What I've made here, you'll kind of learn as you go. It's okay to make mistakes. The way we learn in commercial kitchens is we make mistakes, and you make 2, it's okay. You make 3 and the chef fires you. So anyways, I got a little bit in here, so you can see that. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to, I have a little maseca in there. I'm going to give it a little water. See if we can't angle down here. So that's too thick right there. What we wanted is slightly runny, not too thick, otherwise when we add it in there it'll clump. And that's like a paste right there, and I feel like slightly too thick. So I'm gonna add a little bit more water. Okay, move the camera over here, off my Gatorade can. Angle that down a little bit more. And what I mixed up here is more than I'll need. I'm just gonna put a little in, that's probably 1/4 cup. And you wanna stir it right away. If it's too thick, it's going to clump. You can already see that kind of start to set up as like a thicker sauce. It's cornmeal, gives it a nice flavor, nice color there. And what you want to do is let it come to a boil. which will kind of strengthen the glutens in it, make it a thicker sauce, and or the starches in it. Sorry, not the glutens, the starch. And once it comes to a boil, it's good. We'll plate it, and we're good to go.